Mental game challenges, also known as mental blocks, are ways of thinking that lower your performance. They cause you to doubt yourself, play tense and timidly, destroy your focus, and just overall, they keep you from playing up to your potential during games, which is why it's crucial for you to work on overcoming these mental blocks. To do so, you first need to understand what the main mental game challenges are. And so in this video, I'm going to cover the main mental game challenges that you may face as an athlete, along with a tip that you can use for each one to help manage and overcome that mental block. Now, each one of these mental blocks or challenges can be present on its own or combined with any of the other mental blocks. The goal of this section of the video is to help you gain a better understanding of each mental block so you are better equipped to recognize the block within yourself. That way, depending on which mental game challenge you're dealing with, you can choose the right strategy to manage it. And so the first one is going to be the fear of failure. The fear of failure in sports involves being afraid of making a mistake. Specifically, you're afraid of what will happen if you do make a mistake. And this is a very important distinction to make, since it may not make sense why you're afraid of missing a shot or striking out, for example. You try to tell yourself it's not that big of a deal and it happens to everyone. But the actual act of missing the shot or striking out isn't the real fear. It's the consequences. Let's think about missing a shot. What are the consequences of a missed shot? Maybe your teammates get mad at you for not passing them the ball. Maybe you think the fans will think you're a bad player. Or maybe you think that your coach will take you out of the game and you'll lose minutes. With the strikeout example, you may actually be afraid of getting lowered in the lineup, letting your team down if there are runners on base, or having your batting average drop. It is the consequence of the failure or mistake that truly drives the fear of failure. And when you play with fear, you may hold yourself back, since your focus is on not wanting to make a mistake. The next mental game challenge is sports performance anxiety. Anxiety in sports is characterized by extreme worries. Like the fear of failure, you think about what may happen in the future. If, for instance, you don't want to make a mistake, you may spend time before and during the game worrying about how the game's going to go. Performance anxiety can even be felt the day or days leading up to the game. This anxiety is caused by outcome-oriented thinking, and so that means you are thinking too much about the future. The outcomes you think about may include the score, whether or not you'll ace this next serve, what your stats will look like, maybe what your coaches or teammates will think, and then so on. There are a few different reasons performance anxiety negatively impacts your play. One will be the actual physical symptoms that are going to be caused by the worry. This includes shaky hands and legs, a rapid heartbeat, and maybe some dizziness. These physical sensations can lower your performance. Another way that anxiety is going to hold you back is because the thoughts you have about the outcome, they're going to distract you and keep your attention away from the present moment. And lastly, when you're worried about what's going to happen, it's natural to have tension, and playing tense is never a good recipe for peak performance. Another mental game challenge is losing composure. When you lose composure during a game, this is typically going to happen following a mistake, but it can also be seen after a bad call or just if things are generally not going your way. Losing your composure means getting too upset, not being able to control your frustration. If you lose your composure, you are losing your cool. Let's take a look at the main time losing your composure is seen, following a mistake. After you make a mistake, it's easy to feel upset. But feeling upset is one thing. Losing your composure is a completely different story. When you lose your composure, you may show it externally, or you may keep all the anger bottled up inside. But one thing is for certain. The frustration that you feel makes it difficult to move on and play with confidence moving forward. Another mental game challenge is perfectionism. Perfectionism in sports involves a need to be and appear perfect. While your goal should always be to compete at the highest level you can, demanding perfection from yourself is only setting you up for failure. When you are a perfectionist, funny enough, you never allow yourself to feel perfect. You're always scrutinizing your game and looking for any small mistake that you need to improve. However, with perfectionism, mistakes are not seen as a positive thing to improve. They are a way of signaling that you weren't perfect that day, which can lead to feelings of frustration and low confidence. The expectation that you need to play perfectly is a major cause of losing your composure. Since you want to be perfect, the first sign of a mistake can mean that you weren't perfect and be very difficult for you to move on from. Also, when you go into a game with perfection as your goal, this can lead to you trying to avoid mistakes more than wanting to play to win, and this can also hold you back and actually increase your chances of, even making mistakes during the game. Another mental game challenge is poor focus. When you have poor focus as an athlete, you are easily distracted, and it's difficult for you to refocus if you do become distracted. When you lose focus during a game, you haven't really lost your focus at all. Your focus is still there, it just so happens to be on the wrong thing. For example, you may be getting ready to putt when you find yourself thinking about the score and how much you need to sink this putt. That's not the kind of focus you need at that moment, nor the type of focus that will give you the best chance of succeeding and sinking the putt. Poor focus doesn't just involve focusing too much on the outcome. It can also involve not being able to block out crowd noise or thinking too much about your mechanics while you're playing. Focusing on the task at hand and giving it your full attention is a key element to your success, and it's something that's going to be very difficult when you have a difficult time controlling your focus. Another mental game challenge is self-doubt. Self-doubt happens when you don't believe in yourself and you don't trust in your skills. It is the opposite of playing with high levels of confidence. With confidence, I'd like to break it down into two different categories: confidence in understanding and confidence in execution. Confidence in understanding means that you understand you have high-level skills. If you and I were talking, you'd be able to tell me with confidence that you know you have a good shot or a good swing, for example. Confidence in execution involves the trust you have to execute your skills during games. So while you may understand on a logical level that you are skilled, you may not trust in your ability to successfully apply those skills during games. Self-doubt is going to happen in a very similar way. You can doubt whether or not you have the skills necessary to succeed, and you can also doubt whether or not you're going to be able to execute those skills during games. And then another mental game challenge is negative self-talk. Negative self-talk is very similar to self-doubt because when you are doubting yourself, you will be having negative self-talk. And self-talk is going to involve the way you speak to yourself and the way that you think. And this can be broken down into direct and indirect self-talk. Direct self-talk includes the way you speak to yourself about yourself. And then indirect self-talk is going to include the thoughts that you have about the environment and things around you. Both direct and indirect self-talk will have an impact on your game. When they're negative, the impact is going to be one that hurts you and lowers your performance. The reason negative self-talk is considered a mental game challenge is because of the way that it impacts how you feel. If you are thinking negative thoughts, your feelings are going to mirror that. For instance, if you are beating yourself up over a mistake, your confidence is going to drop and you won't be in a good emotional state to play your best moving forward in the game. And then the last mental game challenge I want to talk about is social approval. Social approval is characterized by relying too much on the opinions and judgments of other people. Now, the two biggest groups of people I see athletes focus on with social approval are parents and coaches. Both are very natural for you to worry about what they think of you. Of course, you want your parents to think you're a good player, and your coach is the one who's probably going to be giving you playing time. But what happens when you worry too much about what they think? This is where a lot of fear and anxiety can form. Social approval holds you back because you may play it safe out of fear of losing their approval. You may also play with confidence that goes up and down, since how confident you feel is going to be based on how much you think others are thinking that you're a good player. Now, once you can recognize a mental game challenge is present and negatively impacting your game, you want to take steps to manage the block. Overcoming mental game challenges involves working to build more positive mental skills that will counteract the effects of the block. With each of the tips that I'm going to go over, you can begin working to overcome any of the mental game challenges that you are dealing with. But you want to remember one thing: just as with any skill, mental skills take time, effort, and repetition to build. So let's begin with overcoming the fear of failure. When you are dealing with fear of failure, we need to think about what kind of images you're creating in your mind. Even if you're thinking about not wanting to mess up, you're still thinking about messing up. This means the image that you hold in your mind is one of you failing. That's not exactly the best thing for you to be imagining when you play. A tool that you can use to change the image that you have in your mind is visualization. Your goal is to focus more on succeeding rather than failing, since with the fear of failure, it's easy to spend most of the time thinking about not wanting to fail. This leads to you playing not to fail instead of playing to win, and you want to play to win. And to do so, you need to imagine yourself succeeding. Visualization is where you create a scene in your mind of you performing well. You want to do this right before the game starts, or even during the game sometimes. With baseball and softball players, for example, I always recommend using visualization before at-bats. Now, I've linked a video right here that goes into more detail on how you can use visualization as an athlete. Now, the next mental game challenge to work through is performance anxiety. And so playing with performance anxiety is going to cause you to play tight. To help, the main goal needs to be calming you down and relaxing your mind. Think about when you're anxious. Would you say your mind is clear? Or is it cloudy and full of uncontrollable racing thoughts? To reduce your anxiety, you need to calm your mind, and a great tool to do this is breath work. By taking deep breaths, you help calm yourself down, clearing your mind, along with reducing the physical symptoms of your anxiety. A fantastic breathwork exercise you can use is count breathing. This is where you breathe in for a certain count and out for a certain count. It can be in for 5 and out for 5, in for 4, out for 8, or anything like that. The point is to take deep breaths, along with focusing on the numbers. This calms you down while simultaneously taking your attention off whatever it is that you're thinking about. Next, we're going to work on keeping your composure. If you struggle with keeping your composure after mistakes and you routinely get upset, you need a strategy to let go of your frustration. Now, it's not realistic to try and not get mad at all. Truth be told, the frustration that you feel is natural. Your goal is to play well, not to mess up. So it's easy to get mad at yourself if you do mess up. But what you must recognize is that getting mad at yourself is only going to be hurting you moving forward. Your job is to realize that you're upset, recognize it, and then work on reducing the anger that you feel. And a tool that you can use to help is a thought-stopping phrase. This is a statement that you create, memorize, and then use in the moment when you're frustrated. A thought-stopping phrase has 3 key components: letting go of the mistake, recentering on the present moment, and then refocusing. An example is let it go, take a breath, focus on the next play. Keep your thought-stopping phrase simple and easy to remember. Now, to learn more about letting go of mistakes during games, I've linked a video right here that goes into a lot more detail on different ways that you can work on letting go of these mistakes. The next middle game challenge to work through is perfectionism. The need to play perfectly will only keep you from playing your best. To play at your highest level, you need to be able to play freely and naturally, and this is going to only happen if you are accepting the possibility of making mistakes. When you are playing with perfectionism, we know that your mind is focused on the outcome, since it's the outcome that determines whether or not you were perfect. And so to begin working on letting go of perfectionism, you want to work on shifting your attention. You want to take it off of the outcome and place it on to the process of your game. An exercise you can do to get yourself thinking more about the process is reverse engineering the outcome that you want. So let's say that you're a basketball player and your idea of perfection is scoring 15 points in a game. You begin with the idea of scoring 15 points. Then backtrack, thinking about everything that goes into you scoring those 15 points. Think about what you need to do during the game, along with what you need to do during practice to make you a better shooter. Now, once you have your process written out, that's what you want to focus on during practices and especially during games. Next, we want to work on improving your focus. To improve focus, you need to ask yourself, what do I actually need to be focused on? Going off what we just talked about with perfectionism, what you need to be focused on is the process of your game. During a game, when you say that you have poor focus, it's because you are focusing on something that's not part of the process. Whether that be a mistake you just made, what someone else is thinking of you, or what may even happen by the end of this play or by the end of the game. To help, you want to work on keeping your attention centered in the present moment and on the process. And to do this, you can set something known as performance objectives. Performance objectives are targets or cues that you set that are 100% in your control and part of the process. Now, here's a video that I've linked that goes into more detail on setting performance objectives for both practices and games. The next mental block is self-doubt. So we're going to work on managing your self-doubt. And to overcome your self-doubt, you actually need to work on building confidence. Now, confidence is going to rely heavily on the memory of success. When you know that you can do something well, because you've seen yourself do it well before, you're much more likely to trust that you can do it again. That's the idea behind the visualization that I described when talking about overcoming your fear of failure. The more you visualize yourself performing well, the more you're going to trust yourself and the less fear you're going to have. But another tip that you can use to build confidence and as a result overcome your self-doubt is spending time after each practice and game reviewing what you did well. Instead of immediately thinking about, the mistakes that you made and what you need to work on, you can give yourself a few minutes to think about some positives of your performance. This gives you the opportunity each day to see yourself as successful. And this reflection adds to the memory of success that we know is crucial to building your confidence. The next mental block is negative self-talk. And so the goal with negative self-talk is to substitute the negative thoughts for more positive and productive thoughts. And there are 2 aspects of doing this. One is in the moment, while the other involves a more long-term approach. In the moment, you want to look out for any negative thoughts you may have. If you notice yourself thinking negatively, you want to then substitute that thought with a more positive and productive thought. This in-the-moment substitution becomes much easier once you combine it with a long-term approach. The long-term approach is where you work on changing your natural thought patterns. To change your natural thought patterns, what you want to do is create a list of positive and productive thoughts. These are going to be thoughts that you'd like to have. Then what you want to do is begin repeating them to yourself every single day. The last mental game challenge we need to work through is social approval. Now, since social approval is all about needing the approval from other people that you're a good player, what we are going to focus on to reduce this need is giving yourself that approval. The general tip for this is to keep your focus on yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a way that works to increase the confidence you have in yourself as a player. An actionable way you can do this is by writing out a list of all the reasons that you have to feel confident and all the reasons why you're a good player. Then what you can do is review that list every day. This, combined with the exercise that I went over for managing self-doubt, where you reflect on the positives each day, is a great way to reduce social approval by making sure that you are giving yourself the approval that you need. Now, these mental game challenges, also known as mental blocks, are the patterns of thinking that are holding you back as an athlete. They distract you, cause you to play tight and timidly, and lead you to doubt your abilities as a player. The good news is, through work, any mental block or challenge you're dealing with can be worked through. The key to remember, though, is that mental game challenges are overcome by focusing on building more positive mental skills. And so if you're currently struggling with any of the mental blocks that I outlined, apply the tip that I gave for that challenge and get to work on overcoming it. Now, if you're interested in a more personalized approach to managing your mental game challenges, then you can go ahead and click the link that I put in the description below to learn more about one-on-one mental performance coaching.